So our presentation is getting better and bigger, but there was still the schema and the tables, which are sometimes a bit messy and difficult to look at. Really clear things. By the way, you notice how many slides we have now, 44, but the presentation actually became shorter in terms of time. So that schema here is not really optimal. It's a lot of text. Sometimes you really want this huge amount of text, and that's okay. But then you might want to speak about parts of it. Then use this trick with the highlighting box, which really makes sure that people will now look to the classification. I just want to introduce a trick, what we can also do, because the main message of a slide is typically just one. This one here is that we have this generic framework for deep learning in space and time. So what we could do is we really make this box here just dark blue, so that people will at the beginning not get totally overwhelmed with a lot of text. And then we start successively, just copy the slide now, with the content of importance, which is here the part of the classification. So we can really, oops, cannot do it like that. Can really just black out, or not black out, but blue out these parts which are not important yet. So now people will also look into the classification. It's not the optimum yet. As a possibility, we can also say there is an application area of classification, but we remove all this text here. Just away with you. I'll remove them here because it's a smart art. I don't like smart arts, by the way, but let's assume we have them. So we have classification away with the rest. So we have classification now here as one of the areas, and the others don't care about how they look like now. Classification, and then you can have this sphere, 4 there, and then you make an intermediate slide where you say now classification entails, and then you put the 4 elements inside. Just copy that element from here. And by the way, if you make that, we think the way of layouting slides. So instead of putting classification on the top and then having just listed 4, we have this here now, document classification with CNN. We arrange them around our main text. And as we realized, 40 the one, so maybe 24 is a nice size. And then we have our 4 classification areas. I just copy now 4 placeholders. Down, we align it a bit, or we intentionally do not align it. Depends a bit on our wish. So typically, I like to have 1 in the middle and then 5 points around. That results in the optimal amount of elements per slide, which is 6. So I just copy these areas now here in the slide. And if your intention was to speak about each of and every one of them, it's really better to have them on one slide. And I will not do that now because it's just a proposal what one can do. But one can here even, let one appear and gray out the other, as we have done with contrast improvement before. And then when we come back to the slide, we just go to the main headers. Just document, transfer, extreme learning machines. We can provide them with ELM. And one-shot learning. We just keep the keyword, the main keyword in, and by that, remove the noise which we had before and have just one keyword per classification method, making this graphics already way better. I will keep now everything which I have mentioned here in this slide set which I save, but later on I will just keep the main overview like this one here, because this is really something you need to think by yourself. What is the best schema? What is the best way of representing what you want to say? Maybe you want to discuss also with your supervisor or some of your colleagues. Let's go into the last one, which was this table. The table here looks kind of right. It's okay, and especially equations, but also numbers and tables look nicer when generated by LaTeX instead of in Outlook, in Office applications. And when you then want to have people focusing on one specific columns, we can easily work with our contrast mode. That's already good. However, if you have complicated tables and you want to have way more control over it, sometimes there is no other way than just to redo the table. So you click insert table, and having actually 7 columns in the table in PowerPoint is too much. Normally you would have a main message or maybe 2 per slide. So we have our left column and then maybe 2 reference system and our system. So we just use 4, and then we would write data set. Oh, sorry, I need to insert another row. Right click. Sorry, this right click, insert a row below. Here we go. And then we have 2 rows. This color scheme of a table is not nice. I prefer the really dark one, as you know already from others. Here we go. Data set. And then we have English and Fraktur. If we do that, and then, maybe the OCR1 is one of the reference systems, which is important, but then a reference, for example, this E3 system, which is very famous, is really the important one which you want to keep. So you just add these 2. You have to rewrite the numbers. I'm sorry. And then your method. And then sometimes it's even good to write our behind. That is more clear. I will not go much into this details because it's a scientific thing, but if you have, let's say, a data set of, here in that case, it was a few tens of thousands of elements, then having 0.40%, it's really legitimate to write. But if you have only a few elements in your test set, let's say 100, then even having on a sub-percentage level reports of error rates, that's a bit weird. It should not be the case. If you have only 100 elements, then the precision should just be on a full percent And if you even have less elements, then sometimes it's better to just write the amount instead of the percentage. It's a bit weird if you would write, for example, if you have only 5 elements and then you write 20.0% if one element is correct and 40.0% if 2 elements are correct. That's definitely misleading. People would think you have a way higher precision than, or accuracy of the numbers than you really have. So we can redo tables, and once we have done that, we have this possibility, we can just adjust the size, we can centralize them if we think it's better, typically centralizing some parts and not centralizing others is nice. For example, aligning numbers is quite important. Another thing here, of course, is if we do this, we need to use the 2 decimals after each value. There's also a small space we might want to add. And by the way, there is a specific small space character, which you can find with insert, and then you select the small space character, because a big space is sometimes a bit too much. I will do that in the final version. And when we have that, then we can now say, here, look, our system is indeed the best, and we can make it boldface. We can make another one cursive if there is something very specific about this result. Now we have way more control over the individual items of the table. And now that I've done it, I actually keep that one. And copy these 2 boxes from the next slide. Like this. So, and now we know how we can work with tables and schemas. Figures we have seen already, in order to improve them.